Hi, it's Von Hertzog. I'd like to welcome you back to the Social Club, my analog digital hybrid studio. Today, I want to talk to you about a new speaker kit from SEAS in Norway. Last Christmas, they released their Lucid kit. It takes a 6-inch woofer and a 1-inch tweeter. Now, they both use the same materials. It's their new Metamodal TPCD driver material. And it's revolutionary. It's bleeding edge technology. It does some really cool stuff from a material standpoint of lightweight, but sturdy and stiff and very low distortion, very good off-axis response. So some of you may have seen these materials already in speakers like Ex Machina. Their coaxials use the TPCD Metamodal materials, and this is the same materials from the same company in this kit. Now, this isn't using a coaxial, it's using a separate 6-inch woofer with a 1-inch tweeter. But like I said, they're both the TPCD material. One of the things that this speaker does very well is low distortion. I'm going to show you later here. SEAS took a graph where they had the speaker play at 96 decibels and the distortion was still over 50 decibels down. So very low distortion, very linear, and pretty moldable. I mean, you can do a lot of different things with these drivers. They have an enormous X-Max on the woofer, which allows lots of movement, a lot of moving air. And I got to be honest, like I can't think of another speaker with a woofer this size that can put out that amount of low end. Like typically you have to go up to a 7 or an 8-inch woofer to see this kind of output, but you're getting it from a 5.5-inch, 6-inch driver. So absolutely worth it. They designed this to be put into a 14-liter box with a little bit of extra baffle area down below to help provide some vocal bloom in the baffle step area. So it's by design. These were made to be used in a sealed box because, as SEAS's own words, it's to prevent all of the limitations from a ported speaker that you get, like port noise, mid-range leakage, all of this stuff matters. So in the end, all you're left with is this beautiful little bookshelf speaker that can outperform its size by a great deal. This is a kit that is worth your investigation. I have to send a big shout out to Madisound. Madisound did not sponsor this video, but they did send me these speakers for review. So in a way, this review is only possible because Madisound sent me the speakers. Now, I do have to send them back. I don't get to keep these things. But I appreciate it a lot because it allows me to offer decent content to you guys. It allows me to investigate a speaker I might not have otherwise had a chance to investigate. And so I'm going to recommend that you go to Madisound to pick these speakers up if you think it's a good fit for you. So if you end up liking these speakers, head over to madisound.com and pick these up. Again, not a sponsor, but they did ship me the speakers to review and I will ship them back when I'm done. But I do appreciate it a lot because it allowed me to spend some time with these drivers, learn the materials, learn the characteristics that they present. I got to tell you, after spending a few months with these things, I didn't just listen to them for a few hours and then do a review. I spent months with these things, listening critically, non-critically, just having them on in the background. You know, I worked on them. I did some mixing and mastering on these things. And I want to show you why I can work on these speakers as studio monitors, because they were designed as an active kit. You're handling all of the crossover filtering and any DSP before it gets to the amplifier stage. So in this case, we're using miniDSP, the 2x4 HD module. We're using that to filter out the proper frequencies to the proper drivers and to correct for any issues that may have arisen in the speaker building process. So we're able to keep it in a sealed box, but help lift that low end as if it were in a ported box, but without the drawbacks of a ported enclosure design. We get the advantages of a sealed cabinet, but with the performance of a ported or passive radiator cabinet. That's kind of the best of all worlds. And it's similar to what the King RF4Y are doing. They keep it in a sealed box and then it can take a lot of EQ because it always has that cushion in there. When that cushion goes away in a ported speaker at about the resonant frequency and below, and the speaker will start playing out of control if it doesn't have that cushion to push back against. So by keeping these in a sealed cabinet, it allows the DSP to do some more of the heavy lifting. What I like is Madisound sent along passive crossovers, physical passive crossovers with really high quality parts in it that allowed me to give a good review of this speaker as a passive. Now, Adam at Madisound did give me the disclaimer that if you were going to use these as passive speakers, you'd be better off in a passive radiator cabinet because that low-end extension does go away without the DSP to help bring it back up. I will say, after having worked on the King R4Ys and tweaking that DSP into perfection, it is a more difficult process than doing it with miniDSP. miniDSP is a much easier system. Any adjustments you make are made in real time. In the King R4Ys with the Hypex amps, you have to flash your changes to the amp every time you do it, which doesn't take long. It's only a couple seconds, but it's annoying when every time you make changes, you then have to upload them before you can test it again. Not the case here. miniDSP to the rescue. So this is the first speaker I've ever used that uses miniDSP. I didn't have a miniDSP module. I had to have Madisound send one out for me to review. And that's because I'm not from the home theater world and the home hi-fi world. I'm from the studio world. So we have like Trinovs and much fancier things when it comes to this kind of stuff. But in all honesty, since you're using the miniDSP, you can use these with any amps. Now, I am using Ice Power amps with this, 125 watt Ice Power amps. The woofers can take 180 watts RMS. The tweeters can take 120 watts RMS. I'm giving them all 125 watts, and they're sounding great. Ice Power amp modules are very clean, and I like to build out my own amps with them because they're easy to piece together and put your own amp systems together. So I could use a different module for the tweeter than for the woofer if I feel like it. So these woofers have 22 millimeters of maximum travel and 14 millimeters of linear travel. So these things have plenty of X-Max to move a lot of air and really help you feel the music. Like you can feel these things kick sometimes, and they're tiny woofers. So, you know, I took notice to that. But I will say, I do like miniDSP. I am going to be using some of the Ice Power miniDSP plate amps in the new VH180 active speaker that I'm working on. I did ask, these cabinets were built by Tyler Acoustics. Shout out to Tyler Acoustics for these beautiful cabinets and their zebra wood veneer. Okay, let's have a look at the PDF that SEAS produced. The DIY Kit, SEAS Lucid. A high-performance active loudspeaker kit featuring the SEAS Metamodal TPCD drivers T29X and W16NX005, designed at the SEAS R&D laboratory. This loudspeaker was made during the development of the Metamodal TPCD drivers to use as a platform for listening tests in parallel with the extensive measurements. We enjoyed it so much that we decided to put this into a kit to share with everyone. The tweeter is the new 1-inch SEAS Metamodal TPCD dome tweeter, the T29X. This is an excellent choice in any speaker with the TPCD dome that finely balance the stiffness, weight, and damping, ensuring clear and accurate high-frequency reproduction. The tweeter also features a patented hexadim magnet system and a titanium voice coil that together minimizes damping and allows for a good force transfer to reproduce all the nuances in the music. It should also be noted that the tweeter features a waveguide. The low end is taken care of by the SEAS Metamodal TPCD woofer, W16NX005. It has a large excursion capability for its size to bring out that low-end punch. The compact size also means that we get a nice and wide dispersion to make a smooth transition into the tweeter. This woofer also has an FEA-optimized magnet system and titanium voice coil former that lowers the distortion and improves the dynamics. The enclosure. The enclosure was chosen to be a 14-liter closed box to avoid the issues of port noise, mid-range leakage, and resonances that you can often get from ported speakers. To get the transients as good as possible, we chose a size that was larger than the typical maximally flat alignment with Q-Box equal to 0.707. Instead, we opted for a size that was closer to the critically damped tuning with Q-Box of 0.5. The wider baffle lowers the baffle step frequency and helps to put out some more body into the mid-range. The crossover. We chose to use an active crossover since that makes it possible to test many different setups in a short time and fine-tune the sound balance. Another benefit is that it gives the ability to EQ the low end, since the closed box starts the roll-off at a higher frequency than ported or horn-loaded enclosures. In this kit, we used a miniDSP 2x4 HD to do the DSP task, but it could also be implemented on most other DSP platforms. With the crossover, we aimed for a balance between a smooth and slightly falling response in the listening window and a smooth power response. The listening window is here defined as the average response within 0 to 30 degrees. To achieve this, we have used a selection of parametric EQs, pole shift, high and low pass filter, shelving, and an all pass. The all pass filter is used to get the two drivers in phase over a large frequency range for a seamless crossover between them. The woofer has a high pass filter at 40 Hz to suppress distortion from excessive low frequency excursion. This filter can be set to a lower frequency or turned off at the cost of more limited max SPL output. The schematic for the DSP setup is shown in the graph below. The setup file for the miniDSP is available as a download on our web, SEAS_Lucid_Files. This also includes the measurements of the drivers in the box and the V2X CAD file for simulating the crossover. This can be used to explore other ways of tuning the DSP, or even make a passive crossover if that is preferred. Measurement results. The on-axis measurement of the SEAS Lucid kit, including the individual drivers and a measurement with the tweeter polarity inverted, is shown below. The crossover frequency is at 3,333 Hz, and we can see that the drivers have a symmetric roll-off. From the inverted tweeter polarity measurement, we can see that it gives a deep cancellation that tells us the drivers are in phase. The next graph shows off-axis response. Here we can see a nice and controlled off-axis dispersion. Then we know that the room reflections also have a smooth frequency response so that we get a large and natural soundstage. You can see here, this is very linear as it rolls off. It's very close to what the on-axis response is. That's fantastic off-axis response. The harmonic distortion is shown in the last graph below. Here we have set the on-axis SPL to be 96 decibels, averaged from 100 Hz to 10 kHz. Then we can see that this speaker has a very low distortion, even at a high SPL output. And you can see how low the distortion is here, as I had mentioned earlier, even when the playback level is at 96 dB, which is very loud. Listening room and placement. High quality stands should be used to bring the tweeter approximately to ear level or slightly above. Even if your listening room is good and large enough, it is important to determine those positions where the loudspeakers can perform at their best. Placing the cabinets close to the walls or corners will result in more powerful bass, but may also bring about response irregularities in the bass or mid-range area. Some experimentation is recommended in order to find cabinet positions and toe-in which result in a good tonal balance, defined soundstage, and freedom from coloration. And then the last is the diagram for the cabinets and driver locations. So you can see the technical drawing for how to construct the cabinets. And that pretty much tells us what we need to know. So if we go onto the SEAS website and check out the Lucid kit, you can see right here you can download the note plan that I just read to you. And here you can download the Lucid Files, which will have the measurements, the miniDSP files, the V2X CAD files, everything you need. So let's talk about the tweeter here. The T29X is an ultra-high performance tweeter featuring a composite sound metamodal diaphragm, second generation TPCD, and the patented hexadim magnet system. The TPCD dome is manufactured to SEAS specifications. By using this innovative material, the thickness, stiffness, and loss factor can be optimized at any given point, enabling an unprecedented control over the modal behavior of the radiating surface. The unique hexadim magnet system exhibits 6 radially magnetized NdFeB magnet blocks, which allow for an efficient ventilation and minimization of any potential cavity residences behind the moving parts. A copper sleeve is precisely mounted onto the pole piece to reduce nonlinear modulation distortion. A high-temperature voice coil is wound on a titanium former, delivering an excellent force transfer and transient motion. The surround is made of a homogeneous and lightweight Sonomex fabric material with high consistency and climatic stability, where the shape and the roll has been meticulously FEA optimized. The aluminum front plate has a carefully optimized small horn loading for an improved directivity control while bringing a sophisticated appearance. That's the waveguide. The result is an extremely clean and vibrant sound that takes the listener to the next level. A superb choice for any loudspeaker system. And then you have the options to download the datasheet for the speaker, the CAD model, and it links to the Lucid kit. And then this shows you the measurements. That's pretty nice looking. And then we also have the midwoofer, the W16NX005. Metamodal TPCD cone is the second generation of the TPCD material, which is engineered to have low weight, high stiffness, and controlled damping. This is matched to an optimized suspension system to give a smooth, extended frequency response. Titanium voice coil former with a long copper-clad aluminum winding for excellent force transfer, transient sound reproduction, and large linear excursion. An FEA-optimized magnet system with precisely fitted copper parts for superb linearity, high power handling, and low distortion. The extremely stiff and stable injection molded metal basket keeps the critical components in perfect alignment. Large windows in the basket, both above and below the spider, reduce sound reflection, airflow noise, and cavity resonances to a minimum. The combination results in improved clarity and finely detailed sound reproduction for a more lifelike and realistic listening experience. And again, you can download the datasheet or the CAD model linked to the driver or the kit. And then these are the specs on the speaker. And you're able to get this very respectable with the miniDSP. And so these speakers do have a very good sound to them. Very natural. They can be used as studio monitors. They are linear enough, especially if you edit the DSP like I did. I'll show you my DSP edits. Okay, so let's take a look at these in-room measurements. This is the response of the passive speaker. So this is using the passive crossovers Madisound built. This is the active response. As you can see, it brings that low end up. Back to passive, back to active. Now, that is not flat enough for me to be able to work on. So I modified the DSP and I took it to here. Now that is flat. We are talking very flat, very linear, good response. I also did a version with the bass stepped up just a bit for if I'm doing production and I want to maybe hear the bass a little better when I'm not doing mixing and mastering, but I'm in the music making process. I like a little bit more bass. But when it comes to mixing and mastering and what we're going to be sending out the door, it's got to be perfect, which means it's got to be flat because this is what I've trained my ears to work on. So just to reiterate, passive, active, active modified. Passive, active, active modified. When I listen to something with a 3 dB bump on the bass, it sounds too bassy to me. And that's because it is. I'm from the studio, I'm using the flat response. And so if I'm thinking there's enough bass there and there isn't, when it gets to another system, it's not going to translate. It's going to sound like it doesn't have enough bass. I would love to see these things in an MTM format. I think, doubling the woofer on these helps with the output a lot. And I think it would really make a fantastic speaker. If you're looking to build a center channel, perhaps your center channel should be 2 of these woofers and the tweeter, because their off-axis response is so good. And that's very important for a center channel. You don't want only the person sitting in the center to get the dialogue, right? You want everyone to get it. So good off-axis response with a nice even, decay to it. That's what you want. As you know from my other videos, SEAS is the company in Norway who is creating and building the greatest drivers for your audio speakers. Amphion uses SEAS drivers. woofers and tweeters. Ex Machina uses SEAS drivers, the coaxials and the subwoofers. There's a reason these companies choose SEAS, and it's because they have such a high quality of product that they produce. They've built a reputation, 70, 80 years in the business, constantly performing at a high quality. You notice. And when I did my AI versus DIY and I listened to the SEAS aluminum magnesium tweeter versus the silk tweeter from Dayton, it wasn't even a contest. It was nowhere close. That Dayton doesn't have near the resolution of the SEAS tweeters. It doesn't sound nearly as nice. Even though it was silk, it didn't sound as good as the aluminum and magnesium. So SEAS has that reputation, and they earned it. It wasn't given to them. It wasn't awarded to them. They earned that reputation. And that's what these speakers are doing now. These speakers are living up to the legacy of SEAS. They are very good, very linear, very low distortion, very high quality. I keep getting amazed every time a new woofer or subwoofer or coax or whatever comes out from them, and I get a chance to get it in here for listening and I can put it through its paces. I'm never disappointed. And I can't say that about other brands. But these things just give me what I need, and I have no complaints. If I were to say, how would I improve upon this? I'd give the MTM design a try, I think an MTM version of this would be immaculate. Maybe that's something you'll see down the road from me. I'm not sure. A lot of people have been asking me about the coax using these same TPCD materials. SEAS recently released the 5.5-inch coax using these materials. And that's what Ex Machina uses in their Ganymede monitors that have the smaller 7-inch sub and the 5.25 coax. They've been in the world for a minute, and now people are asking me about them. And I got to tell you, I haven't heard that speaker yet. I don't have that coax, and they're like $570 a piece, so I'm not just going to pick one up on a whim to tell you guys how it is. I need it for a project. I can't justify just buying one at that price to tell you how it is in a video. But I'm hoping eventually I'll get a chance to check out that coax, and I'm hoping they release the 7-inch version of it too, that Ex Machina uses in their bigger ones, because I really would be interested to swap out a 7-inch coax of those materials with the white ones from the King R4Ys. The King R4Y's coax is phenomenal. One of the best coaxes I've ever heard in my life. And I love it. That's why it is my standard in the studio. But the TPCD do have different characteristics, and they do have a slightly different response. But I don't know how that would translate. I don't know yet. Hopefully one day I can tell you. But until that day, I will say that these separate components, the mid-range plus the tweeter, work beautifully together as a pair. Now, this kit is crossed over at 3,333 Hertz. I don't know if they did that for good luck or if that was honestly the best point to cross over the speaker, but it does sound really good. That leaves most of the mid-range to be covered by the mid-range woofers here, and they do a good job. Even when they're moving massive amounts of air, there's still very low distortion across the mid-range. And that's a testament to how well they're built. So I did spend a bunch of time listening to all kinds of music across these speakers. And I have some notes about specific songs and what I heard from them. And I'm going to share them with you. Now, you might be familiar with these songs, you might not be. But if you are familiar, I hope what I'm about to tell you comes across in a way that makes sense. When I am listening to a speaker, usually some of the first things I do is I will listen to some of my own music on them, because I made that music, I know how it should sound, and I know how it sounded when I made it. So listening to it on other speakers often gives me a pretty good idea of what that speaker is presenting. Because like I said, I did the music, I know how it should sound, and if it's portraying it in a way that isn't like I envisioned, then why is that happening? What is the speaker doing that I'm not picking up on? Some of you may know I'm in a group, VHXRR, with vocalist Rob Rowe, who, if you remember the group Cause and Effect from the 90s, he was the lead singer of Cause and Effect. Rob and I have been making music for going on 10 years now, 9+ years now. Since I create the VHXRR music myself, I mix it, I master it here in this space. What better place to use that as test subject material when I'm reviewing another speaker? So these speakers in this space, how'd they perform? Well, when I pull up my song, The Undertow, that has a very undulating, arpeggiated bass line. And I purposely tried to keep a lot of dynamic range in the bass line itself. The song does get loud when the chorus drops, and there's like a kind of built-in saturation that I like there. That's by design. But these did a good job of maintaining that undulating bass line and keeping everything big and open and dynamic and hard-hitting, which is what I want out of my music. Some of you may remember the group Information Society. Do you remember this song?
I wanna know what you're thinking.
Yeah, those guys. So back in 2018, I wrote a song for them. I wrote a song along with the singer, Kurt, called Nothing Prevails. So they released this single on Tommy Boy Records. I wrote the music for it. I did not play the music or choose the synth patches. That was done by Paul. But it does sound great. And it sounds like them. Even though I wrote the music, it is engineered in the way that Paul tends to do things. And it sounds, like an Information Society song. Yet I wrote it. So I like to review it because I know that song very well. And it has very high frequency synths in it, strings and whatnot. And they come across beautifully here, The bass line is still undulating. The kick is still clear. The cymbals are all there. It sounds great. And I like it. Where are my hip hop heads? Where's my Wu-Tang Clan guys at, right? A long time ago, 22 years ago, which was another lifetime for some people, I was heavily immersed in the hip hop scene as a producer and engineer. And I got to work with Ghostface Killah from the Wu-Tang Clan. And here we are in 36 Chambers together. Look at that. Me and Ghostface in 36 Chambers hanging out. So I'm familiar with Wu-Tang music and how it has a dirty, unpolished street sound to it. Like, their vocals will purposely be distorted on certain songs. Not like the Beastie Boys used to do with like effects pedals and stuff, but like just it sounds like the mic's turned up too loud. And that was kind of their shtick to a degree. Like they were a very gritty, unpolished band. By the time they got to their second album, Wu-Tang Forever, they had a much bigger budget. And so it was interesting because they retain some of those early, unpolished traits, even though now they're in a multi-million-dollar studio with a professional engineer doing all of it. But they wanted that grittiness. And so the song Bells of War, right? You listen to this song, and there's, I think, like 6 or 7 different people that rap on it from Wu-Tang. But you can hear how from one vocalist to the next, it sounds like the mic profile changes. And you can only do that if you have good enough, high enough resolving speakers to be able to hear those small differences. But I can hear it in this song for sure. And again, that grittiness, there's like a distortion to the bass and drums you can hear, where it almost sounds like they recorded a speaker playing a bass drum in a room. But there's like an ambiance to it. There's like where the drums are slightly distorted and the bass sounds the same way. That comes through. Tears for Fears, The Working Hour. Pull that song up. It starts off very spacious, just kind of like a saxophone and some keyboard strings. And the saxophone is so crystal clear that you can hear the pads hitting on the saxophone. It's amazing. The song Intergalactic by the Beastie Boys. I know this is one of Randy's favorites, the Cheap Audio Man. I know he loves testing speakers with his song, and so do I. One of the things I noticed, because the stereo image on these speakers is so rock solid that any slight deviation you notice. And this is one of those cases where I had forgotten. I'd noticed this before on other speakers, but I'd forgotten about it when I went to listen to Intergalactic. The Beastie Boys, the 3 of them, they're slightly panned. And I don't mean by a large margin here. I'm talking a very slight panning. Ad Rock is slightly left, MCA is dead center, and Mike D is slightly to the right. And I'm talking maybe like L3, L2, L3, R1, R3, not large amounts here at all. I'm talking very small. But if you stay in the sweet spot, you will hear that they're not taking the same place in space. They're slightly to the side. And I like that You know, you can't take it too far. If you put them too far to the left or too far to the right, you're going to notice that they're too far off center and it'll be distracting. They did it just the right amount. And these speakers allowed me to appreciate it. You know, Sublime, right? When I was in high school, Sublime had a self-titled album, Sublime. And I remember being in high school and listening to it and thinking, wow, man, like this music's all over the place. You know, like these songs don't really sound the same. Some sound like reggae songs, some sound like punk songs. And so there's a bunch of different musical styles all on one album. Now, I've always had a beef with the mastering on it because I feel like these songs aren't all mastered the same. It sounds like one of those situations where they had the songs mastered individually and they combined them at the end. I don't think that's what happened, but that's what it sounds like to me, because you will have songs that are on the same album that have very different sonic profiles from like an EQ standpoint, from a mastering standpoint. And it's distracting. Like, for instance, the song Santeria, everyone knows it, big radio song, still on the radio. And it has this warmth to it. It has like this nice professionally recorded sound to it, right? But then you go to like the end of the album and you listen to the song Doing Time. And as soon as it starts, like what sounds like a sample at the beginning, it's probably keyboards or whatever, but it is EQ'd in a way that has so much like 3K information in it. It's like so bright, like 2.5K. It's like in your face. And when you go to Santeria, that's not there at all. So again, as a good mastering engineer, you should be able to get those closer to the same space because you want it to sound like one finished cohesive project, right? But I can very clearly tell the discrepancies between the mastering styles on those two songs. And when I'm testing a speaker, I'll bring those two songs up and see how disparate they sound. Because if they don't sound like they belong on the same album, I know the speaker's telling me what it should. NWA, famous seminal rap group from the West Coast. They had a song, Approach to Danger. Approach to Danger is a very busy song. Lots of stuff going on in it. Lots of high frequency information, lots of low frequency information. They have this bass note that hits that like literally pitches down after it hits. So it's like, boom. And that's always like the calling card for that song for me. And so back in my 90s car stereo days, when I was a teenager driving around like a nut, listening to stuff at insane volume levels, thank God I did not damage my hearing. That song was one of the ones that we'd listen to a lot. There's like a heartbeat in it. There's this high frequency stuff. There's gunshots being panned all over the place. It's a very busy production. And this showed me exactly what I wanted to hear. Like, it's a Dr. Dre production, so it's very meticulous. And all of those details came through. The song Maybach Music by Rick Ross featuring Jay-Z. It's another one I like to listen to because it's one that they did an interpolation of an old 60s song. So they played live instruments to it. And I love the way the live bass sounds on that song. The live bass and the drums have a dynamic to them that sometimes sounds like it pokes through a little too much, but it makes it sound more like live music and less syncopated, like it came from a drum machine or whatever. I love how crystal clear the vocals are on that song, and I love how the low end sounds. Very good. Depeche Mode's album Memento Mori. They have the song Always You. That's my favorite off that album. It's how I've always wanted Depeche Mode to sound, where they have like a good sturdy low end, a nice arpeggiated bass line. I love it. And that is one of my sample songs when I'm testing speakers too. And I really like what it gave me. It sounds really good, and I like it a lot. So what are my final thoughts on this kit? It's great. If you're looking for a 6-inch woofer or smaller, this is the kit you want to grab. You're not going to find a 6-inch woofer that performs better with these. Not in distortion, in off axis, in low end output. These things do it all. So as you can see here, these are the speakers, and this is the miniDSP module that we use in the kit. You can put 2 RCA inputs, you can use an optical, or you can use USB. When I was using it on my machine, I used it with USB and used this as my sound card, so there was nothing in between. Then I used the remote control that comes with it to turn the volume up and down and select my preset. I used preset 1 as the straight out of the box, untouched effect. Preset 2, I set to be my flat as flat can be in the studio response. And preset 3, I stepped up the bass response by 3 decibels, as you saw in the graphs. Why did I do that? Because this gives me the best of all worlds. I keep the same speakers here, the same components, yet I can change their sound profile based on the task I'm doing. If I'm doing mixing and mastering, I want it very flat. If I'm doing production, I might want a little more kick and bass in it because that's what I'm used to when I am producing and I'm not worried about making sure the levels sit right. So while it would be over $2,000 to buy all of these parts on their own, the woofers, the tweeters, the miniDSP unit, Madisound is offering it for only $1,839. That's hard to beat, isn't it? If you already have a miniDSP unit, you can save even more money, knock $257 off the price, and it comes down to only $1,582 for this kit for the woofers and tweeters together. And that makes this kit worth it, where the individual drivers, if you add it all up, you start getting to like borderline, can I make my decision? But Madisound offering the discount on the parts makes it worthwhile. So for me, bundling all of these parts together makes sense. Go to Madisound, pick these things up, with or without the miniDSP. I don't know if they're going to be offering the passive crossovers in the future. I knew they do that for some of their other kits. I have no knowledge about whether or not they intend to do that for this kit. But again, if you are going to go the passive route, you should add a passive radiator in the back to help bring up that low end, since the sealed cabinets in this keep the low end suppressed. The miniDSP helps raise it. But if you go to the passives, the miniDSP is not there to raise the low end anymore, so you need the passive radiator to offset that imbalance. So go out, head over to Madisound, pick up this kit if you're interested. Save the money if you already have a miniDSP at home. If you don't, they're still offering you a discount to throw it all in together as a bundle. So thank you, Madisound, for making this an easy kit to pick up and a one-stop shop, really. So if you want this speaker, head over to Madisound. I get nothing out of it, so I don't get a cut of this speaker if you buy one. So it doesn't behoove me to try and sell you on something that I'm not getting anything out of. I'm telling you how good these are because I genuinely enjoy them, and I think that they're a worthwhile speaker given the discount. Again, Tyler Acoustics did these cabinets. At Inclined Fidelity, Vince and I, coming in the spring, we're going to be doing flat pack cabinets for these. So if you are interested, we will be shipping out cabinets for you to put these together on your own. But that won't happen until probably late May, early June is my guess. But if I get them up there early, I'll let you know. So head over to Madisound, place your order on these speakers, and when they arrive, put them all together and let me know what you think of them. I think they sound fantastic. I think that they're going to fill smaller rooms without effort. But it is really nice to have that miniDSP to be able to adjust to get the speaker exactly to your liking.
These things are great. I don't think you're going to find a better speaker at this size than these. They outperform every other 5.5 or 6-inch speaker I've ever heard. They're that good. Can they replace my King R4Ys? No. But what would make you think they'd be able to? Those are two completely different goals, you know. The King R4Y was made to be the King from 20 to 20. And these were made as a easy way to be able to test the different driver differences while they were developing the TPCD drivers. So I'm a fan of these. I'm not hiding it. I think they're great. I love how low the distortion is on these. I love that they can go loud without the distortion. And I love their stereo imaging. You know, the thing that most impresses me about these speakers is the low end. I did not expect that much punch from a speaker of this size. It outpunches its weight class by a good portion. But these speakers sound good from pretty much anywhere in the room. Like I said, their off-axis response is great. The sweet spot is enormous. So if you are looking for speakers to set up in your space, these would be great. Like I said, I would love to test these things out in an MTM configuration. If you have a speaker video or a studio video that you would like to see, drop me a comment and tell me what it is. You know, I have my own list of things over here that I'm trying to work on, but if I don't know what you guys are looking for, I might just be spinning my wheels. Shout out to Brooks Brothers for the fly threads. I like doing these videos. If you like them, please like and comment on them. I'm just shy of 5,000 subscribers. I'm trying to get up over that 5K mark. Help me out. Maybe send this page to your friends or someone who you think might be interested in it. Help me out. I have a Patreon. If you are an artist who is developing music that needs mixing or mastering, join my Patreon. I kind of set it up to be like a layaway system where if you're an artist working on music, bring your music to me. And the amount that you paid in your Patreon dues, 100% of that comes back as credit for studio services here. So you're not just throwing your money away, you get something for it. And I have a lower tier for people that just want to help support the channel. There's like a $3 tier if you just want to join and, help out. But the majority of what I'm doing on that Patreon isn't content creation. You're not buying content creation. You're buying credit to the studio here, just so you understand how that works. See this cool little bee? My son gave me this. He asked me to incorporate it into this video. So here it is. Here's a cool little bee. Bzzz. And most of all, thanks for coming along and watching. I appreciate you spending time with me. I hope that you get something out of these videos. And if you do, like, subscribe, and pass it on to your friend. Help spread the knowledge to those around you that you think might appreciate it. And I will appreciate you spreading it. So until next time, this has been Von Hertzog from the Social Club.